All right, today we're going to dive deep into a really powerful story. It's a set of parables about a creator and his creation, and they get locked into this tragic, destructive relationship that asks some huge questions about ambition, responsibility, and, well, what it really means to be a monster. So, to kick things off, let's start with this famous warning from Friedrich Nietzsche. It just sets the stage perfectly, right? It hints at that dangerous, blurry line between the hero and the villain, the hunter and the hunted. And that leads us to the big, haunting question of this whole thing. What happens when the monster you're supposed to be fighting isn't some enemy out there, but a reflection of your own hidden darkness? That question is at the very core of this story. Okay, so let's start with the creator, a figure the sources call the architect. And his story isn't one of just pure evil, not at all. It's a story of a massive ambition that goes terribly, terribly wrong. You see, the architect is driven by this thing Nietzsche called the will to power. It's that basic human urge we all have, to grow, to build something, to push the limits. And in his case, he wanted to conquer death itself. Now, on the surface, that sounds like the very engine of greatness, doesn't it? But here's the problem. His ambition was just deeply flawed from the very beginning. It wasn't born from some healthy desire to create and nurture life. No, it came from the psychological wound of unresolved grief. He went about it with his cold, sterile intellect, and he made a fatal mistake. He confused the technical skill of creating life with the true greatness of actually being responsible for it. And this is the moment of catastrophic failure. When he finally succeeds, he doesn't see a new life that needs his guidance and his care. No, he sees a terrifying reflection of his own buried ambition, his own rage. He sees what's called the uncanny, and he literally recoils in horror, not from his creation, but from himself. In that moment of pure flight, the creator shows us who he really is. He's not some transcendent great being. He is what Nietzsche called the last man, the total opposite of greatness. Just an individual who wants comfort and security more than anything else. So here's the crucial point. His failure isn't technical, it's moral. He chooses his own comfortable, blinkered, complacent existence over his profound responsibility. This act of ethical cowardice, this immediate abandonment, is the first and most devastating push in a cycle of absolute destruction. But that single act of abandonment, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It lands squarely on his creation, a being born with all the potential for goodness. And that's where a truly tragic transformation begins. The sources are crystal clear on this. The being was born benevolent and good, but the creator's rejection is a foundational trauma. It shatters its moral compass from the very first moment of life. And then society just piles on, meeting it with nothing but fear and cruelty. And the result? All that potential for greatness doesn't just disappear, it curdles. This curdled potential actually has a name: resentment. Think of it this way. When that natural drive to create and to grow is just completely and totally crushed, it doesn't just go away. It turns inward, and it transforms into this deep, vengeful bitterness that starts to see the entire world as an enemy that needs to be punished. And the violence that comes from the being isn't random. It's actually described as a philosophical response to his trauma. It is a form of supreme psychological warfare aimed directly at his creator, a tragic, twisted way to force the connection and the relationship he was denied from the second he was made. So this brings us to the very heart of the tragedy, the self-perpetuating cycle where both the creator and the creation become completely trapped, each one just fueling the other's descent into becoming a monster. They become these twisted mirror images of each other. The creator sinks into being a monster of self-pity and hatred, while the being becomes this fiend of pure vengeance. The line between them just dissolves. They're basically two sides of the same monstrous coin. And here's how this cycle works. The creator's constant neglect and hatred is met by the being's escalating bitterness and revenge. It's a terrifying feedback loop, right? Every action by one of them just justifies and amplifies the monstrosity of the other. This analogy just brilliantly illustrates their trap. Imagine two mirrors facing each other in a pitch-black room. The creator is terrified of his own reflection, and the being in the other mirror can only see the distorted, evil image that's being projected onto him. And eventually, the darkness between them just swallows everything. A cycle like this can only end one way, not with a winner, not with redemption, but with a shared total collapse. The sources use the German word Untergang to describe their end. It means downfall or descent. But it's so important to understand that this isn't some noble sacrifice for a greater good. Not at all. It's a purely self-destructive failure, a total and tragic waste of potential for both of them. And in the end, the final judgment doesn't come from the creator or the being. It comes from the very forces of nature that the creator tried to conquer with his sterile intellect. His arrogance is met with nature's cold, indifferent revenge. Think of it like this. An architect builds a magnificent bridge, but is secretly terrified of the huge chasm below, so he refuses to secure the final cables. When the bridge starts to collapse, it snags his foot and he gets dragged down into the abyss along with the very thing he created but failed to complete. And what about the bling? Well, his end is maybe even more tragic. He's like this magnificent ghost ship, built with a powerful engine but set adrift by its captain without a compass. He becomes a blind, destructive force, totally lost to the world, until he finally just breaks apart in the frozen wastes, all of his immense potential completely lost forever. So we end right where we began, with a question this story forces us to ask. When a cycle of pain is started not by evil, but by cowardice, by a creator choosing his own comfort over his own creation, who truly bears the title of monster? The one who was created different, or the one who refused to love what he had made?